3 is the future.
Welcome, crew, to What Are Your Three, a Channel 3 podcast where we take a member of the channel.
Dan, we can't do this. We can't. You gotta stop pretending here. Like I cannot have the guest of today's episode give the opening. Welcome, crew, to What Are Your Three, a Channel 3 podcast where we take a member of the Channel 3 community. We discuss 3 games, a couple odds and ends, and a couple other games that they're choosing. And we do it all right here. I am Ray, leading the show tonight with my guest host, darthsmeagol. So I'm going to start with Darth. How are you doing tonight?
Well, I'm doing great, Ray. Glad to be here. How are you?
I'm doing well. Darth, how'd you end up here tonight? Let's start there.
Well, it's with the new reward system. As soon as I saw that there was a reward where you could pick a podcast guest, I'm like, all right, I know what I'm spending my first tickets on.
And here we are. The first 20 tickets. Was it 20 tickets? 25?
It's a 25 spot.
I tried to hide it from like my memory. I didn't even want to know it was there. But 25 tickets were redeemed, and so finally 60. This is the 61st episode we were recording. We have the Dan Tucker,
the Dan
Tucker, head of events. Head of content over on Channel 3. He does a million one things, all the Facebooks, all the Instagrams, all the background stuff, the millions of tags. Anytime there's a tag that says do this or win this and get a tag, that's all the Dan Tucker. Dan, how are you doing tonight?
Grumble. I will say this much. You know what? We did the kid's birthday party with his friends today, and I was perfectly happy not to have to prepare a single thing for tonight. This is wonderful.
Well, there you go. We found a way to make this all work out. So yeah, things are, besides the fact that, Dan is now the guest and Darth is co-hosting tonight. We're gonna keep this thing going just as always. I'm gonna start this list off. I'm gonna say this. I could have put this entire list together for Dan. I wouldn't even have to ask him. And I could have done the list. I'm going to get into the order of this list a little bit later, but I could have put the list together all but this first game. So the first game that we're starting off is Heavy Rain, which I'm going to say this is not a game that I think you and I have talked about, and we've talked about a whole bunch of games. Controversial on the site, 3.7 stars. I think more popular in other places than here on Channel 3. But Dan, why is this the number one game we are talking about tonight?
So here's a little tip for you two. I kept something behind my back. I palmed a knife throughout this thing to throw a curveball at you, just to test you two. And the thing that I did was I have a secret theme for my 3 that I did not tell you. Because I couldn't come in, like I could come in and I could talk about, like, my honorable mentions are more my 3 goats, if you will.
Hey, you want to stop taking away my content? I was gonna go over that whole thing when we got to honorable mentions.
We'll get. But I'll tease. But I gotta tease it out.
Yeah. Why Heavy Rain? What's going on here, Dan?
All right. So first of all, it earned every one of those 3.7 stars, and that's probably an accurate 3.7 stars. The reason this one is leading it off is because this is I think a chronological play for me. My theme is my wife is not a gamer.
It all makes sense.
And now you're following where I'm at. So my 3 are the 3 that I picked are around games that my wife insisted upon watching, and I could not play them unless she was watching, which started with Heavy Rain. I don't even remember how it was that she became aware of it. I think it was something that, like, my brother and his wife got me for Christmas. I can't remember the timing. It may not have been his wife then. I mean, they've been together forever. So, I knew my brother's wife when she was 12. Like, she worked at the same place I did, or she was the daughter of the guy who owned the place. So, knew her as a kid. But anyway, so time is time is an abstract construct, but whatever. I just say all this to say that I ended up getting this thing for Christmas, and my wife's like, well, what's that? It's a, never judge a book by its cover, but always judge a video game by its cover. And sure enough, that the cover art of that game and the name really intrigued my wife. She said, what's that here? And I explained to her, you're playing as multiple characters, and there's a murder mystery involved, and you're kind of working your way through that. You don't really know what's going on here. And she's like, okay, I think I want to check this out. She saw the trailer for it. So anyway, I got this game, and unfortunately this was, like pre-kids and everything like that. So there was time, at least more time than there is once you have kids. However, I still had to pace my gameplay for her. That I couldn't stay up late and just play a game like I would a Fallout or something like that, where I just like, okay, I'm just going to give up a night of sleep and bang this game out. I had to actually sit and play through the game with her, which it really was a pretty good game for it. The game is basically 99% quick time events, a little bit of walking around and searching for clues. So it's a very cinematic game in that regard. It was a pretty forgiving game. In so much as like you screw up and you'll die, but I felt like it was pretty generous with how it was. But it was fun to play through with her. It was fun for her to watch and kind of fun for her to see how the game was going to play out. It was also fun as there was some very very graphic illicit activity very early in the game too. They don't hesitate for a shower to get broken out in that game. Like, oh, okay, this is how games normally go, honey. Like her involvements through the course of time with video games has been like her parents wouldn't let her have a Nintendo. She won a Nintendo somewhere and they sold it off. And then I came around and I won a Wii, and we played some Wii, and she enjoyed like the Wii and the activity games, and we still have that same Wii upstairs, and she played Mario Kart and things like that. But this was the first game where she really watched and sat and kind of participated in.
This game came out. It's actually been released a couple times. When you got it, was it back on the PS3?
It was the OG. Yeah, the OG PS3 release. So I think I have like maybe there was a PS4 update for it that like was free on PlayStation Plus or something. So I still got it like on digital laying around. I've never picked it back up. There are several paths that the game can go through. Like there's branches and side activities and things like that. But the funny thing is, I've never been compelled to go back to it. Again, it earned its 3.7 stars. It was fun for what it was. It was compelling for what it was. I did not. There is a trophy for keeping all the characters alive. I'll say I did not keep all the characters alive. I can spoil a game that's the better part of 2 decades old and just say that. Yeah, can we enter spoiler country now? Am I allowed to do that?
I'm pretty sure, like its game was like 2013 or something like that.
It was before that. It had because that was PS4 country.
It was
that thing had to be like 09, 2010?
2010, yeah.
So yes,
PS3, PS4, and then Windows. So they definitely had they
did the 4 upgrade later. But anyway, so I just say all this to say, so you're playing as the murderer the whole time. Like one of the 4 characters is the murderer. And yeah, listen, I whacked the guy at the end. Like I made it to the end with him. Like there's other times where you could see narratively where one of the 4 characters could die through the course of the game. And I kept them all, I legitimately kept them all alive. I didn't have to, stop and reset or pause or anything like that. I was kind of going through and making it work, but I'm like, nah, he's got to die. So that was the only reason. I'm not even sure how, because from what I remember, it was like there's like a fight at the top of a building. I'm like, one of these 2 characters has to die, and it's not going to be the good one. So see ya, homie. You're chucked.
Yeah, I was going through the gameplay because I don't think I've even heard of this one. So I was watching the gameplay of it, and I was like, it felt familiar, and I didn't know why. So I had to go look. And, knowing you, so I got to go check the developers of different games. I know you're all about the developers and kind of the background stuff. And I was like, this game feels like Life is Strange, but like almost before it. And I'm like, why does it feel like that? And because it's made by Quantic Dreams, which is another French game developing company. So apparently France has this thing where they just love these narrative kind of like odd, dark games. Because I was watching, I was like, this is Life is Strange.
Man,
just like
Ray's out here weaving narratives and
I'm
connecting dots, and
researching.
like you're doing the Pepe Silva corkboard back there.
Hey,
You got pins connected between stuff. Look at you go.
France has a style of game they like apparently. So two different studios doing similar products. So you didn't play this multiple times. This is like you played it once
No,
and that was it.
I thought I was going to take another run at it. Like I said, I want to say it was like free on PlayStation Plus during the 4 generation. I'm like, oh, let me put this on here. But like, we're all getting up there. You less than some of us, but like, there's only so much time for games. Like, unless I'm really compelled to go back in, I'm playing through Last of Us 2 right now. Like, listen, they did that game up. They gave it some oomph behind it, but no, I was just never compelled. And the other reason you might know this game is the opening was pretty heavily memed overall, where the game opens up and it does a really good job of empathy or sympathy or something like that, where you're playing a straight-laced dad, you're learning the mechanics of the quick time events, like it's having you brush your teeth and having you kind of do all this stuff, so you learn it was really cool use of the motion controller, the motion controls of the Bluetooth PlayStation 3 controller and stuff like that. So you're going side to side, you're doing all this other stuff, and then it leads to your kid getting hit by a car in front of the mall, but you're running around the mall yelling, Jason, in this like better than Final Fantasy X voice, but not a whole lot better than it. Where like it's just this repeated Jason. There's a lot of good acting in it. There's a lot of good voice acting in it, but like that part of it was just terrible.
Did you feel like, 'cause you said you kind of knew how to keep people alive and stuff. Did you feel like it was easy to kind of predict what the correct, or like the quote unquote correct choices would be as you're playing? Because you could make
No.
I've seen like the endings and I was like, man, it can be really bad.
Oh, it can be extreme. Like the game can end terribly.
It's pretty terrible. Yeah.
Yeah, your other kid that didn't get killed by get hit by a car because you couldn't take care of them in the mall is kidnapped, which is the precipitating incident of the game. You're playing I don't remember is the woman a reporter? I don't remember what. For some reason, she's chasing it down. You're playing a private investigator who's the killer, who's chasing it down. An FBI agent or some kind of Fed chasing it down.
Who
and
is
the dad.
addicted to drugs.
Yeah, of course. And the dad who, like, there's some dark stuff that happens to him through the course of the game where, like, I remember one of the choices, like, okay, you want further clues to where your kid's at, you got to shoot this guy in the head who's, like, perfectly innocent. I chose not to do that. Like, as much as I joke about you and the Avada Kedavras and things like that, like, I'm sure the head exploding animation would have been brilliant, but it was not on my to-do list. I'm like, no, I can't do it. I bet you I could figure this out. Not separate note for this. I'm like, I don't think it ever says officially the game is in Philadelphia. However, when you're trying to figure out the address, it's something Roosevelt Boulevard. Like this is Philadelphia. This is Route 1 in Philadelphia. I know this handily. And so whatever it was, like I only had like 75% of the final clue basically, and narrowed it down to like 4 locations. And I'm like, I don't know how much effort someday I should probably look into how much effort they put into it. I'm like, if this is Philadelphia and this is the address, this is where the place is based on the map. So I chalked it up to local knowledge if it's accurate that I got the last clue and got to the right place.
Have you played other narrative games? And let me be clear, because you've played games with stories and stuff. I'm talking about games kind of like this, more quick time, more it's story and choices and multiple endings, and not really. It's not the gameplay. It's the kind of the story and figuring out part more.
No, I mean we'll talk about another branching narrative game later on, but no, not like this. Like I have Life is Strange downloaded. I have, to your point, I have that downloaded. I haven't even played, like, the company was also responsible for that Detroit Become Human game.
Yes.
That's supposed to be very, very similar. Again, another one that, like, I guess they eventually all just end up free on PlayStation Plus. Like, it's sitting in the backlog, but I feel no guilt because it was just like a free monthly game. But
And
one of the I put full asterisk on this. Like, I understand one of the developers of these two games, particularly, is a pretty garbage human. So sorry for that, but or at least garbage to work for, or something. Like, there's something not good about the guy, as I understand it, allegedly, or whatever legal context probably has to be put on this. But anyway, just say all this. Say, like, I never got into that. I never played that one, but I have no objection to it. It's just like I like other games where you're heavily involved in the action more. And this game had you involved with the action, but I just it was a detour for me because I was intrigued by the format, and hey, it was fun. I like myself a murder mystery. I'm the guy who either solves a murder mystery in a book or a movie really quickly, or I get annoyed because it's such a convoluted, contrived plot that I'm like, this was never really a thing. You made such a stupid decision to make this plot work that, like, I'm out. I'm done.
what was your and I'll end with this. What was your wife's kind of final take on the game? Since the whole, the list is back to her watching.
Yeah, she really enjoyed watching it. Yeah, again, not one I think was compelling. She'll still talk about this, say like, oh yeah, she liked that game. She enjoyed watching the game. It was kind of fun there. And again, like, I was partially annoyed. Like, I kind of had a feeling what was going on with the detective character of, like, something's wrong with this guy. Something's not right. They're not showing you something here. He's always in the wrong place at the wrong time. And so, yeah, I mean, so I was kind of annoyed that they had you playing as it. I was more annoyed that I'm like, I could have probably, not that I'm a platinum trophy hunter or anything like that, but I'm like, I'm never going to get this trophy keeping this. Like, I that's probably why I never went back either. Is like, it wasn't like it was a cheap plot twist. It was one that, like, didn't really stick with me the best. I thought it made sense. I thought, narratively it kind of worked from what I remember at the time, but that has something to do with it. But she's like, oh, this is a fun video game. She likes that more than I'll talk about some of the other stuff that's coming up about her watching and participating in the backseat gaming aspect of it. But no, she had a good time with it because it's a game that's always moving. You're not looting around. You're not spending, I'm a grind 10 hours and level up to level 99 and just finger flick the final boss and obliterate him kind of guys. So she didn't have to worry about me grinding in this game or scrounging for parts. So she had a blast with it.
I'm getting older because I have a thumb injury right now from playing my Steam Deck, and it's because I'm holding it away that I didn't realize was not natural, or I guess it's just not the right way to hold it. Where my thumb, again, really great for audio, I have my thumb bent doing the control stick just like by default because of how I'm holding it.
You're like jamming that thing on. You're like at a full perpendicular angle for, like, what are you doing?
I've never seen anything like it.
Because I have to do, like, sometimes I'll depending on what the buttons are, I got a claw grip sometimes to do certain button combinations, and so it just ends up that way. And I woke up one day, I was like, man, this like hurts. I can't move it.
You're like cramping up.
Yeah, basically. So now I have to, like, really actively, and it's my right thumb, by the way. So it's not the one that I move with. The one I move with, I hold pretty, normally it's that right analog stick. So I've had to make the effort to really just put, like, the flat part of my thumb on it while I'm playing.
Wait, hang on, two things. One,
it's been a thing.
Thing one, that's going to make, I don't even know what I'm going to do with that GIF, but it's going to be a heck of a GIF. Whatever I just witnessed there. Thing two, I'm trying to figure out how you do that. Like, I'm double jointed on this thumb here, so, like, it bends backwards. How are you doing that with your thumb pointing in that direction?
What are you talking about? This is a normal thing. Well,
yeah, but how do you hold a controller like that? I can only do that if there's nothing in my hand.
No, it just sits there. I don't know how to do this so you can see. It just
you're full Ricky Bobby. I don't even know what to do with my hands. What are you doing? Why is it so intense? I can see your hand like,
you see that?
Your hand is like cramping up trying to even show it to us.
So, again, now I've had to make this effort of, like, really just having it straight the whole time and then pushing the buttons like that. So it's been an adjustment.
Somebody get Gabe on the phone. I need to understand where in the quality testing was raised thumb factored in.
I don't hold a normal controller like that. If I hold a normal one, it's be flat, right? Because I'm not going to bend my thumb like this.
You have a switch.
No.
Exactly.
What are you doing?
First of all,
hang on. I gotta tell you, I love how I'm able to, like, turn this back at you. Like this.
Hold on a second.
I'm taking this podcast off the rails, baby.
First of all, because the switch again is different. right? The difference is on the Switch, that right analog stick is lower. That makes all the difference in the world.
You even
'cause
have
it makes
the,
it
the
much.
backbone or whatever that thing's called that
This
makes
is
it closer to
my
the Steam
Ori
Deck.
split pad.
The
Yeah,
split
so
pad.
no, but this analog stick is down here instead of up here. It changes everything. I'm telling you.
My thumb hurts from trying to pretend to be you just now. By the way,
Okay,
why?
everybody who has a Steam Deck and a Switch, grab them both and realize the difference. And I tell you, it's been an adjustment.
This is going to be the worst quest of the day when Ray sets up. Hold your post a picture holding your Switch. Post a picture holding a Steam Deck.
Tell me you don't bend your thumb to push the buttons.
How do you place your thumb when you're using a controller?
Gosh, it depends on the controller.
When you play, were you the guy on the Nintendo 64 who was holding like a joystick with your fingers?
No.
I'm just trying to figure out what else you do weird.
No, some claw grip stuff depending on the game. Not like ultra claw, but a little.
The Mario Party. The Mario Party.
Use the index finger to roll on the buttons.
The Mario Party control situation. Yes, I get that.
I think for me it was more. Where did I do that more? That was more when I played Call of Duty on a PlayStation controller way back in the day, like a PS2 controller. Also, why I just preferred the Xbox controller. I don't like the two Joy-Cons right next, well, the two analog sticks next to each other. You gotta hold it sideways. You gotta tilt the controller a little bit to be correct with it. You can't hold it straight. That was a whole thing. I don't like the PlayStation controllers. All right, Smeagol, go talk about the game. Let's go back to it. You have to hold it tilted to optimally use. You can't hold it straight. Nah, it tilts. You slightly tilt it over so you can get all those buttons quicker because of where the two analog sticks are on the bottom. I'm telling you, I play Black Ops 1 Zombies. The only way to officially play it on a PlayStation controller, that control. If I had an old one, I would show you. I don't have a PlayStation controller in my house.
I need to see what you're doing with your thumb on the PlayStation controller. What are you like? Hold it like this now? What are you doing?
So tilt it to the left, slightly to the left, so the right side's higher. You get a better angle on your thumb, and then you got play for the button placements. Or just get an Xbox controller and just make your life better. All right, Spiegel, go talk about another game.
All right, so the next game up on your list, and Dan, you and I had talked a bit before about Naughty Dog games. We both obviously are fans of their games, but I think we probably agree that their piece de resistance is The Last of Us. So what about this game, sticking with your theme, what about this game grabs your wife's attention?
So this was not a game. This was not Heavy Rain. This was not my wife coming in saying, no, I want to watch this one. This was a game, I got it. Maybe I got it on the 3, but couldn't play it until the 4. But I don't think I even bothered trying. So what happened was, the game came out while my wife was pregnant with our son, or like right before, whatever it was kind of a black hole. We were moving out to Western Pennsylvania, blah, 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 blah. Finally, a while after the PS4 came out, maybe almost a year, I think, I got my hands on one. I had the PlayStation 3 the whole time, but I never played The Last of Us on it, mostly because of time. Work was busy, getting ready for the kid. Like we moved, the kid was coming, whatever. It was a whole thing. It wasn't like a full Dark Ages, but it was, I didn't have time to sit down and play a game. But anyway, so when they didn't do like a full remaster, maybe they called it a remaster, whatever it was, they did an upgrade for the 4, and I picked up The Last of Us and I said, let's go check it out. Sure enough, game was, again, beautiful. You're watching every ounce of Naughty Dog narratively. You're watching every ounce of everything they had to offer visually. I just think about driving down the road and you're seeing the farmhouse on fire while you're trying to escape. And again, I think they perfectly captured it in the HBO show. So anyway, I'm going through and playing this game, having a good time. But again, this is a game where you're scrounging, right? And so a game that would definitely bore my wife. But finally, I think I had beefed everything up by the time I was probably about halfway through the game. My wife was amused. I remember calling her in. I'm like, oh, look, the like second big level's Pittsburgh. Like we had just moved to Western Pennsylvania. So there was amusement for us of like, oh, look, here's our new home, just trashed, dilapidated. Everything's collapsing. Much much of Western PA as it is now. Just kidding, but or am I? They're fixing the bridges. It's all good. But anyway, so she would come in and like kids down, just kind of we'd be relaxing. I'm like, I just want to play a game. You could come down here, read your book or whatever, and she'd start kind of watching in the background where like the narrative is really taking off as you're getting into the back half of the game, and I want to say it was whatever you get involved with the brothers in that game, the older brother and his little brother who's the much younger kid there, and she's watching that. And again, like a thing they perfectly nailed that episode on the HBO show, but she's watching this and compelled, and like again, it's one of those things where, again, I'm sorry, this is a really spoilerific episode. I mean, that's my way of keeping people from having to listen to me is I'm just going to keep going into spoilers. So Sam, one of them, Sam, whatever. But you're watching it, like you know this thing's going down. You know it's going bad. You saw what was happening. Like this kid's going to get got, and you're watching and like she's just compelled and emotional and everything's going on. She's like, this is a really good game, and like I got the order coming down, much like I did for Heavy Rain at that point of like, hey, can you wait for me to play this? I'm like, oh no. Not oh no in a bad way. I'm just like, yeah, no, listen, I can't blame her. And I remember we were even talking back then of like, there was talk right away after that game came out of like, they're going to make a movie out of this, or that was not like we're at the end of the prestige era of TV that we're in now, but that wave had not yet crested. That, there was the Mad Men's of the world, and Walking Dead was out there, but it was not the like, we're going to spend $300,000 on, or $300 million on one season of television. It was, okay, we're going to make a movie out of this, which, probably would have worked, but it would have been really rushed. But, she was compelled. Like she was watching a movie or watching a TV show. So I would get to go through and kind of play a level. And I by that point, like I said, I was kind of beefed up. I had enough, one of the more frustrating things with that game was having to construct your stealth weapons. So your blades you would stab the zombies with would, or, whatever you want to call them, but the clickers, all the different forms of them, would break. So you only got, one use or two uses or three uses as you built up. But anyway, so I kind of like I'd leveled up as much as humanly possible by that point. So I didn't have to scrounge in every drawer. Again, kind of the two running jokes of the HBO show is they should have spent like 3 episodes digging through every drawer, looking for every screwdriver and pill and bottle of rubbing alcohol and rag they could find, much like Joel did with his video a little while ago.
They should have found a trophy. Like there should have been like a little like toy trophy on a shelf somewhere.
Just a little medal that meant nothing. But it meant everything at the same time. Episode. But it was that, and then not having to watch Joel die 755 times. Joel got much as Ori did for me. He died a lot, and they never captured that in the show. But anyway, so it was a game where, again, you could see where the levels are coming up. I think I talked about it during Joel's podcast where, you could see, oh, I'm coming up. It's time to get ready for a fight. You can see where they've got barricades set up, and you can see where cover's going to be. And like, okay, here's where I'm going to have to fight some humans. Here's the stealth part where I'll be able to kind of move around and dance around and figure out what the pattern is to take out the various, the various types of zombies. How do I get the clickers first before I get just the normal, brain dead ones that can still see? How do I do this with least noise? But all of that was pretty smooth even by the time I got to the back half of the game. And I just, the ending of the game, especially, like you get to the stuff where you have like the giraffe again thing they kind of perfectly captured and in the show again as they killed that one. They killed that show there and did a great job. But even down to the ending of it and like kind of what's happening and kind of like just, oh man, what's going to happen here? What are you going to do? And you're trying to get out of there. I think that getting out of that level again, the other ending of the show, or the ending of the show was the other piece where like I died about 75 times trying to get out of that final level. Pedro Pascal had it a lot easier than I did. Everybody I was going up against had military grade SWAT gear and had AK-47s. They were, they were on their way taking care of me, various assault rifles and, it was a lot easier for him just popping a couple of hillbilly rednecks out there and being able to get out of that final place pretty easily. Anyway, just say all that to say, she came in like halfway through, got hooked on it, loved watching it. I did not die so many times she got bored and frustrated with it. It was just funny when the order came down, like, hey, can you wait for me? I'm like, well, I guess I better find a second game for times I'm playing when she's not around.
Not opening. Am I right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, just the way you get opened into the world there, and it's a quiet night. You're playing as the daughter too, so again, like they did a really good job. Much like with Heavy Rain, as silly as it may seem, like they open you up brushing your teeth, but you learn how the game's going to play. And it's the same thing here. Like you're just going around trying to find elements of what's happening, and you see the world's going downhill rapidly in there, but you're learning the mechanics of the game and how to play through, and it's like this beautifully eerie thing that's happening too. And then and just the opening and the town and the explosions and the running and the attacks that are happening all over the place. And then the thing, I spoiled everything else, but then the military interaction happens, your shot, daughter shot, and just like, oh man, it kicks you right in the gut to open the game up. And but you're never, it's not one of those things like, I can't figure out how they did it where people weren't off put by that either. Like, it's just funny as I'm sitting here talking about it now, there's so many times where I find myself being off put by something where I'm like, this was not made with good intention, or this was made with ill will. This wasn't made with the right intention. It's just like the vibe is off, the frequency's off. And there's something about like, yeah, guess what? We murdered the daughter in the first, what's effectively the first 5 minutes of the movie. But no, you're on board still. There's just something about it that works narratively without feeling like it's not cheap. It's not a stunt that's just done to get you to say like, oh, feel bad for this guy. Like it works. It's in this rich world, and it goes back to the acting too. Sorry, Brian. I know that Brian will say what he. I don't know if he's Brian's favorite person in the world, but man, like they do such a good job with the acting in that game. And I don't know what's motion capture versus what's voice acting. I know there's certainly plenty of motion capture involved, but man, they really hook you with the performances in that one.
So The Last of Us did a fantastic job, in my opinion, of fleshing out this post-apocalyptic world. It was through those well-crafted locales. You already mentioned Pittsburgh. It's brimming with little details to discover. You start off in Austin, Texas. You go to Boston, Pittsburgh, Wyoming, Colorado, finally Salt Lake City. Which of these areas was your favorite to play through, and why?
So it was, oh man, that's actually a tougher question. I'm going to say, man, they were all so good. And I'm going to take a 2-minute sidebar here, and then we'll come back and actually answer your question. Because when you made the comment you made about like this fully fleshed out world, I mean, Druckmann was working on this. He went to school here. He went to school in Pittsburgh. Like he went to college here. And that's where he kind of had his first presentation on it. And George Romero came into class, like Carnegie Mellon, I think it was, he went to down in Pittsburgh, and he presented to Romero, and Romero told him it was a stupid idea. And he basically had another 10, 20 years to figure out what to do with it. So the guy was spending a couple decades basically, Druckmann, building it out in his head. But anyway, I just say all this to say, like, man, that's tough because, again, the Pittsburgh part was just fun because, like, okay, I can't say it was an accurate representation of downtown Pittsburgh to use the Yinzer pronunciations for this. But I want to say the one set piece that sticks out the most for me is the restaurant fight when you're playing as Ellie. And, that's like the boss fight where you're trying to crawl around and you're trying to escape the cannibal town leader, religious cultist guy, whatever he is, because it's this big, like, log cabin hunting lodge type restaurant. And they did such a good job. Like, that was one that just the details for that stick out in my head still. I remember the town's like this snowy town. It's the middle of a blizzard. It's giving you cover, so that way it's kind of believable that you can be this, 16-year-old girl or whatever it is, and can actually sneak up and take out these, middle-aged men with a pocket knife and and like a bow and arrow, and like, oh no, it kind of makes sense because you can sneak up on them, you can make it work. And I just felt like that was really cool because it was also something where you played, 75% of the game by that point, and all of it was as Joel. Naughty Dog has done, to your point, a great job with even Uncharted. Like there's always a second character there, so otherwise you'd get flanked, you just be destroyed. You have Sully there, you have whatever various characters there are throughout Uncharted, and it's the same thing here. You've got your what's her name in the beginning of Last of Us, and then you've got Ellie kind of there making sure you don't get flanked. But now, like, you're not Joel anymore. Now you are playing as the quote unquote defenseless girl, which she's not, but you're not talking about a late middle-aged man who's done nothing but like leather himself through the course of the zombie apocalypse. And now you're playing as this girl who just physically does not have it the same way these other characters do. And it's kind of fun the way they built that level, for a lack of way of putting it. And that sticks out to me, I guess, to answer your question.
Was there a certain enemy type that you dreaded having to fight?
Oh, it's always the clickers. Give me the humans any day. But finally, when you get the upgrade that lets you parry the clickers, so you're not just like, because they start out the game of just like, they get you, you're dead. There's no running from them. You're a one-hit kill. That's it. So finally, when you can parry and you can counter with the shears or whatever, your melee weapon is that can kind of stealth them, which I guess you're one shot killing them too. But that's not the point here. It's not supposed to be fair both ways. But the clickers are by far, and even now playing through The Last of Us 2, I'm just like, God, I hate these things so much. They're never so terrible though that I don't want to play the game. Like they're not that enemy. I can't think. There's enemies in games where like I don't even want to play this game anymore. It's not fun anymore because there's ways to beat them. They build it into the game that's achievable. But anyway,
I did find it easier to kill the clickers with Ellie though.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because again, like they're just trying to get you. They just want to shift the perspective. They want to change things. They want to mix it up. They don't want to make it a total disadvantage or anything. You're not dealing with a whole lot of it. Or you mean in part 2?
I haven't played part 2. I meant in part 1.
Oh yeah. You're still. It's still not bad, but I don't even remember. There's a little bit of the clickers with that, but she's mostly the human. I mostly remember the human stuff when you get to the town. That's true. There is all the stuff when you're in like the warehouse or whatever when you meet the guy at first, but it's not as painful for her because again, you're kind of souped up by the end of the year. You're at the tail end of the game at that point, so you're pretty well souped up.
So, did you have a favorite weapon to use?
Not really. I was just like the rifle and the handgun. They both just got the job done. I can't say there was, because you also get like the assault rifle and things like that. I just needed the simple stuff. I always wanted to be, you don't have a lot of ammo in this game. This is much like the original Resident Evil. There is a finite amount of ammo in this game. You also don't have unlimited pockets. So the ammo that you pick up, like, okay, I can carry, 25, 30 rounds, whatever it is. So it's not like I can carry all 175 rounds that I pick up or, that I go by in the course of the game. I always have some max capacity. So I always wanted my shots to count. And even again, as I'm playing through 2 now again, like I took one shot in the course of a thing, like just because I needed to end it quickly. I couldn't figure out how to get the drop on somebody. I'm like, no, I'm making sure I get one clean headshot, and that's how I would play. I would play it that like, no, I want the handgun or I want the rifle. One shot, one kill. I'm done. I got to save the ammo. I can't, much like I would a Phoenix down in Final Fantasy. I want to carry as much as humanly possible. I'm hoarding, so I'm going to make it count. I need that accurate weapon. When you get to the machine guns and stuff, they're not accurate. They're not efficient. I'm not a fan. I want one shot, one kill.
I'm not sure if Ray has played The Last of Us, but either way, I think he's disappointed that you didn't pick the bow as your favorite weapon.
Well, yeah, because that's, do you use, I'm trying to remember, do you use that with Joel or is that just with Ellie? You use it with Joel too. That's right. You do use it.
Yeah, use both.
Yeah, because you know what? That is great because you go pick the arrows back up too.
And the stealth kill
too.
Stealth,
yeah. That is a good call.
I did you didn't pick the stealth weapon, Dan.
Hey, Ray, listen, now's the time. Those PlayStation first-party games are on sale for the PC. Now's the time to dive in.
I know. But then there's so many backed up. When I finish Spider-Man, maybe I'll go buy something else.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
So Naughty Dog also released DLC for this game, Left Behind. Did you ever play through that? Do you think it added to the story? Was it just a cash grab in your opinion? What do you think?
Oh, it was
of
certainly
that?
not a cash grab, but it was far from it. I think it was fully fleshed out. It was a good. Did you need it? Nope. Did it add to the story? Yep. Kind of the perfect thing that you want a DLC to be. Not where somebody else is being robbed of narrative. Not where the game is incomplete without it. But it gives you like, okay, I think you kind of get the lone wolf and cub thing from Joel and Ellie as it is, but it gives Ellie a little bit more of a story. So no, you go for it.
And I'd be remiss not to mention the sequel. You know, some say it's better than the first, others say it doesn't come close. Without getting too spoilerish, does the sequel compare to the original for you?
I dare say it beats it. It's richer. It's got more going on, and even again, you're not spoiling when it happens in the first like 15 minutes of the game when you switch perspectives right away to Abby's perspective off the bat, who, like, again, not to get too spoiler about it, but like, if you know what happens in this game, and immediately you're playing as that character and you're on a collision course with what's going to be happening in this game. You're like, oh, this isn't. I went in kind of having an idea of like, well, I know I have an idea of what's going to happen. I saw the trailer for the game. And I can kind of piece things together. But when you very quickly change perspectives and like, oh, this is not what I thought it was going to be, and it goes into this much richer narrative about like it's the revenge and the cycle of violence and everything that comes with that is really, I mean, it's perfectly executed. There's no two ways about it. I'm dying because I'm watching all the casting stuff happening. Like, give me season 2. I want to see them put this on screen. Maybe 2, 3, whatever it's going to take. You know, they may split it in 2 seasons, whatever. But I just have to say, I dare say it is close to a perfect game as it could be. And that's all there is to say about that. But it's exciting, and the upgrade for the 5. I have said it on Channel 3 a few times. The upgrade on the 5. Again, it was $10 for me because I had it already for the 4. Like a $10 upgrade. They didn't charge everybody again. We're charging you $70 for the game again. Shut up. No, they're not. They're charging you $10. If you want to get the upgrade, fine. If you don't, shut up and move on. But the funniest thing I have to say, and I will go on my tirade because, again, there is a lot about the cycle of violence. The cash grab part, if you want to say there's a cash grab part, does fall into part 2 where they put in this like roguelike mode where you're playing through. You're playing through levels and taking people out, and you're facing various challenges. You're going from room to room and getting upgrades and recovering, and like you're just senselessly murdering people throughout this thing with like no consequence whatsoever. And the whole point of the game while you're going through it is like, no, there's consequences to these people you are taking out. These are not mindless zombies that are going through. But no, take this entire game that, again, Druckmann did not direct that. I think somebody else at Naughty Dog, they had a couple other people working on it. Like, they put it in there much like they did with Link's Awakening. We're like, well, we gave it the dungeon builder on the Switch. Like, they just kind of shoved it in there. But I'm like, this is counterintuitive and antithetical to the entire game you have created. But hey, have fun if everybody wants to have fun with that part. It's this weird thing to digest for me. I'm still trying to process.
So I'll end with this one. You know, at the risk of spoiling a 10-year-old game, you know, the ending was quite the emotional journey. You know, your whole mission was to deliver Ellie to the Fireflies so they could develop a cure from her immunity. But when you find out that the cure would require Ellie's death, you know, you kill everyone to now save your adoptive daughter. And then, of course, at the very end, you lie to her and tell her that, you know, the cure was even possible. Now, I'm sure anyone can understand Joel's dilemma, but what are your thoughts on Joel's actions, especially as a father yourself?
It has nothing to do with a father. Like, I play amateur scientist as much as I play amateur lawyer. And I'm like, no, that wouldn't work. They would just kill her and it wouldn't work. So I'm of the camp of like, this was never going to work. They all had to die. So it's like, no, you can't cure a fungal infection that way, guys. This is not how this works. So I hate to undercut the your question, like your question's right. It's still like, no, you know what? I'm all for it. Because again, if there was something to it, but anyway, like scientific, I'm like, no, this doesn't make sense. And maybe some scientists out there is going to say, no, it makes perfect. No, there's something about like, no, this doesn't make sense. So you all die. You don't get to just cut somebody up because you think you might be able to figure something out. And yeah, you're all getting got. That's it.
All right, so we move on to the final game of your top three, and that's Rock Band 3. Now, there are 4 mainline Rock Band entries, 2 band-specific entries, the Beatles and Green Day, and even a Lego spinoff, because let's face it, who doesn't have a crossover with Lego these days? And that doesn't include the plethora of Guitar Hero titles, which is pretty much the same game. So what about Rock Band 3 in particular puts it on this list?
All right, so I went to a buddy's house. That was the first I'd heard. There were Guitar Hero was around. My brother had Guitar Hero. It was kind of fun playing it. I still can't get the Guitar Hero, the guitar controller down. It just does not work. My brain doesn't work that way. What do I do with my hands? Again, I joke about the Ricky Bobby thing. Like I can't. My brain does not work to make my hands do all this stuff. Ray is shaking his head here. Is that an agreement shake, Ray?
No, I don't. No, I don't agree with you. Guitar Hero is better because it's your show. You can take
no. The guitar pieces doesn't work for me. I can't do the guitar. That's part of what it is.
In the same way, I can't figure out the guitar for life with me.
So I go to my buddy's place and he's got like, oh, check out this. This is Rock Band. They took the Guitar Hero and they put everything else in it too. Oh, really? Okay. Now I have zero musical talent whatsoever. I've never been able to play an instrument. I've never been able to do anything. I'm like, you know what? I already know I can't do the guitar. Let me try the drums. So I'm kind of, and like, when you start on easy, this game has a beautiful progression of like, hey, we're going to help you get the rhythm down. We're going to help you figure out how the hand movements are. Like I had a way easier time mentally picking up how to play the drums versus like learning the guitar in the game. It was just the way it was. So I was hooked with that. Again, it was something I won from a radio station. Like, all right, we got it, dear. We got, let's go try this thing out. My wife, again, she, for context, she too has no ability to play a musical instrument, read a musical note whatsoever. She did all the high school musicals. She was in like Little Shop of Horrors, Anything Goes. Like she was leads in all these plays in high school and sang just from like, learning the music and kind of what she had to do. She couldn't read a music sheet if you put a gun to her head, and so be it. But like, here's Rock Band where like, again, they kill it with the microphone and how to do it. There's a couple songs she probably disagrees with how they read the how they read the various highs and lows of it. But anyway, this thing became the centerpiece to first of all, just kind of fun activity for us because again, we bought our house and we had our basement and everything, and for many out there who have bought your first house, that means you go into another black hole of life because you don't have extra income to spend on anything. So whatever we had around the house was what was going to be amusing for us. So we had Rock Band, but it also became like a centerpiece of when we'd have people over to do stuff. It was like, okay, we're having a Rock Band party. It was basically this big karaoke thing. Rock Band 2, they took everything, they iterated and improved. They made it better. It was cleaner. It was, more songs. You could download the disc from Rock Band 1 and port it all over there. And now you got Rock Band 1 and Rock Band 2 built in. Rock Band 3, though. Why did I pick Rock Band 3? So Rock Band 3 was like the height of it. For all intents and purposes, right? They add the keyboard to it, which is kind of fun. But again, like, we had it, but again, my fingers just don't work that way. Give me the drums. I can, by the time Rock Band 2 came out, I got the cymbal expansions. I could play the cymbals on this thing. I could expert drum. I could get the 5 gold stars on expert with the drums. Outside of like Foreplay Long Time from Boston, I could probably handle a great deal of songs as far like I couldn't handle the 5 devil horns when you got to like the worst of the worst, but I could hold my own on a lot of other stuff. But the thing that sticks out with me with 3 in particular was my mom's 60th birthday. was during like Rock Band 3's lifespan. So again, like, wife and I are having parties. That's kind of where the wife part of this story comes in. So for my mom's 60th birthday, though, my brother, sister, and I, again, we're all at various positions in our lives. We're like, houses and freshly married, saving up to get married, whatever. So like, we did a fire hall party for her, and that may make sense to Ray. I don't know what the Canadian equivalent of that is, if there is such a thing, but like volunteer firehouses, they generally have a lot of them over in Eastern Pennsylvania. They actually have like nice catering halls. It's not like, okay, you're having a party in the garage. Like, there's just something about the culture out in the eastern side of the state where they put in these, nice catering halls in them, and we rented out the catering hall in this volunteer firehouse. My brother, again, as I mentioned before, my brother, his father-in-law owns a restaurant. He was the head chef there. My brother, at the time, he does some other political type work now, but at the time I think he was either working for his father-in-law again, where like, again, he and I worked for his father-in-law since we were both 14 and could get working papers effectively. But he had also done some time in some high-end steakhouses, sous chef, and all this. So anyway, so I just say all this to say, we catered the thing. I made hundreds of homemade meatballs and sauce, and we got, we did a bunch of like roast beef, all sorts of stuff. Like we put a whole catering thing together for it, and we hosted the party. But anyway, I like literally brought my PlayStation 3. They had a projector there. We hooked the PlayStation 3 up. I went so far as to create an Excel document of every Rock Band song that we had or downloaded, alphabetized one by band, alphabetized one by song, and we put out like a karaoke list basically. And that was like that was the musical entertainment for this party. Was like we had one screen up. My brother brought his Xbox, and one of the Jackbox party packs was the like entertainment for people. You could play You Don't Know Jack or whatever other games there were on the Xbox. We had just music running all night because somebody was always playing Rock Band. Even people who had never had it before, like, oh, I will just sing and do karaoke for for this song here. So anyway, so I just say all this to say it was this weird intergenerational thing that worked. I mean, like, I'd got my mom a PlayStation 3 at some point too, and just like download everything for her because she always had fun playing Rock Band too. Rock Band also even. So like I'd gotten her a PlayStation and slapped everything on there for her, but it was this fun like karaoke thing that was there. And even when Rock Band 4 came out, just still a blast for my wife. She still loves to pull it out there. She's trying to get my kids involved. She wants the kids hooked on it. It's not sticking for them. They're actually learning things. Like my daughter's learning the recorder now. She's doing musicals already. My son's working on the clarinet now, and like they're learning actual musical stuff. We're both idiots, and I can hit a plastic thing and make it seem like I know how to play something. So I don't know where I was going with that, but that's the story of why.
Now, you actually did pretty well in a Rock Band tournament once, didn't you?
Yes. So we back when we were in Philadelphia, so it was the Rock Band 2 era. There, I don't remember. This was like the height of Facebook not being garbage. Just go to Channel 3 for your gaming content now, people. Let's be realistic here. But somehow, the Rock Band sponsored with Harrah's Casinos a Rock Band 2 tournament and said, hey, put the band together, come on out. There was a casino right outside of Philadelphia. They I think it did in Atlantic City also, but by that point there was gambling in Pennsylvania. So we didn't even, not that I was far from Atlantic City anyway. That was like an evening trip we could make down there. But, we gathered some friends up. We're like, let's go do it. And so my brother, my sister, my wife, and I, we all got together. We got the band together, and my wife did "You Ought to Know" by Alanis Morissette. Now, part of this was it was just it wasn't hey do the best. It wasn't get the best percentage. It was get the highest score. So that meant all you had was like 10 people playing "Give It Away Now" over and over and over again by the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Which I'm not the biggest Chili Peppers fan to begin with, but my God, if you're going to continue to play that for me, there's not enough for me to be able to drink to tolerate that night. going through it, but we got second and third place. There were 2 different events they had. We got second and third place, even when everybody else did that song over and over again. We played that well as a band to come in second and third place, and we made a scratch off of that. Good times.
So just how good are you at this game? Like, can you beat like any song on expert?
I cannot do the devil horns. I don't know. You know what? It's been a minute since I've played too. Again, just because like the kids, and like I'd put the drums away because the kids would come down here and like, and I don't even know how I would replace them at this point. Like they're back in my basement. They're in my back storage area. They're safe. I think I could pick it back up pretty quickly. I would have to probably train myself up from like medium to expert again. And much like Ray's thumb with the Steam Deck, my lower front of my shins would burn depending on what was going on. I also had to get to the point where I got the second bass pedal. You could get a double bass pedal for for Rock Band. I started to learn the double bass pedal. I could probably pick back up to like the 5-star or 5 I could pick the 5 stars back up probably pretty quickly, I think. But I could gold star on drums, pretty much anything up to that, unless you got to the devil horns. Then I'm like, no, that's where you get into like Dream Theater and Megadeth and all that. I'm like, I can't keep up with this. There's not a beat for me to keep up with. This is all over the place. I can't do this, but I can hold my own. Probably if you put like colors on a drum set and played Rock Band with me, and I had a real drum set with the same colors in front of me, I might be able to play an actual song for all I know. I still can't read a music sheet if you put a gun to my head, but here we are.
All right, I'll end with this one. So what's your favorite song on Rock Band? And this might be a different answer as well. What's your favorite song to play?
Oh, wow. So I'm going to have to say Everlong is my favorite song on there, period. One of the beautiful things they did in the Rock Band 2 era was they started putting out like whole albums basically for download. And when they put out the Foo Fighters Color in the Shape, I think Everlong was the song that was on the game anyway. But when they put out the Color in the Shape by the Foo Fighters as the whole album, it's like, oh, this game just has me under its thumb. There we go. There we go. But Everlong is easily the best song that's on there. You know what I'm going to say as my favorite song to play? And I'm probably going to not answer because I just can't think off the top of my head. I have Say It Ain't So stuck in my head by Weezer. But I'm going to shout out again, in Rock Band 3 where they perfected things, they had basically like an indie tool that could be developed that you could put out your own music for. And there were a lot of, like Third Eye Blind, they were doing like the Taylor Swift re-record stuff before Taylor Swift was, to try to like battle some of the right stuff of recording. So like Third Eye Blind put out their stuff on this version of it. But I just say, let's just say those in the know are aware of Jonathan Colton. And this is how I learned of Jonathan Colton, the artist behind many a gems such as Code Monkeys, R.E. Your Brains, Skull Crusher Mountain. This was how I learned of him beyond the theme song for the Code Monkeys cartoon, which is also brilliant if anybody can find it. I think it was a G4 show back in the day when that existed, but again, I digress. Ray, do you know what I'm talking about?
Code Monkeys. You said G4, and all of a sudden I was like, hang on a second. Like,
it was this.
I'm gonna look it up while you're talking.
It was this stupid, brilliant 8-bit animated show that about like game coders in the 80s.
Yeah, but it was like a year. It was only like a year long too. Yeah.
But it's like one of the episodes the company's hired to make the ET game, and the guy who's supposed to do it's like I can't remember what had, like he's falling asleep on the project. He's like, oh my god, I gotta find out what to do. Oh, it's an alien invasion. Oh, it's an alien invasion movie. That's why. Okay, we'll get guns, and like that's how the ET game is made. Like it's stupid stuff like that. But it was, I loved that show, and he does the theme song for it. But like my kids have started hearing some of the Jonathan Colton stuff now because I found this guy from Rock Band kept suggesting his music to me. Like, come listen to Skull Crusher Mountain. I'm like, all right. Let's hear what this is. And you get lyrics about like, I made this half monkey, half pony monster to please you. Maybe, maybe I went a little too far, used too many monkeys, ruined a perfectly good pony, something like that. Right down to his Baby Got Back acoustic cover. but like you find all sorts of gems. But people go find Jonathan Colton's greatest hits, and I think he still does a cruise every year too. If you're a cruise person, it might be a worthwhile thing to check out. But I'll go with the Jonathan Colton discography as my favorite, just stupid fun thing to do.
Well, we made it through your quote unquote top three, or your what are your three, and now we're gonna go to the honorable mentions. A couple games that did not make the list, and you mentioned it already, but I wrote it down here because as I was sitting and doing this, like there's something wrong with this list. Your honorable mentions are
this show is not. It's not called your top three, Ray. This show's not called your top three.
It's not called your top three. It just so happens that your honorable mentions are 3/4 of your Mount Rushmore list. As I was doing my research, I was like, oh, there's something wrong here. So I had to figure it out. But we're gonna start with Chrono Trigger, which you have. It's number one on your Mount Rushmore list. I don't know if you put numbers on it, but it's the first game listed.
No,
there, so.
they are ranked, and there have been times where there was a stretch where Mass Effect 2 had the one spot, and then I had to like stop and like, no, it doesn't. It doesn't really have that. Chrono Trigger does.
I mean, I've been going through. I've been posting. I've been going through an existential crisis these last couple of days with my Mount Rushmore. I changed it again today. I'm like, really, I've been having some life struggles with it. So I understand.
I think I have to send you for your Steam Deck because it's on Steam. Chrono Trigger's on Steam. I only found out recently. I did not realize.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
It is on Steam. It's not a perfect port as I understand it. But listen, if you have not experienced this, I tell people just go do it.
So is this the start of the RPG love for you, and in particular the turn-based RPG love?
No, it is not. I was late to Super Nintendo. I've talked about on here before. We went from a Nintendo household into a Sega Genesis household growing up. I don't know what the exact politics of that decision were. It was usually, my dad and my uncle were coordinated in their console purchases through time. They both had the NES. They both moved on to the Sega Genesis. Eventually, the PlayStation came along for the two of them. But somehow the Sega Genesis became involved. We were a Sega household. Politically speaking, for those of us who were around during the peak of the console wars of the Sega versus Nintendo era specifically, you had to choose a side. This wasn't a like, oh no, why can't we be friends? Can't we all just get along? Like, no, you were issued, somehow you were issued your side and you diehard stuck with it. So
right.
we were a Sonic household. This was a Sega Genesis household. Anyway, so my buddy was my best friend, Joe, at the time. He was a Super Nintendo guy. I'd go over to his place, and that was where the RPG thing started for me. I want to say it was Secret of Mana first. Again, available on the Switch for anybody who's not played it. It is not a turn-based RPG. That one is a little bit more real time. There are traditional RPG elements with it. Probably, it's a lot more equitable to Kingdom Hearts, Ray. It's a lot more equitable to like the spellcasting systems with that. But it's like back in the 16-bit days. Now that I think about it, like, oh no, Square was always tinkering with that space. But anyway, so it started with that and Final Fantasy 3, aka the real Final Fantasy 6, but they only gave us a few of them over here. They did not think we were competent enough to handle it. So it started with those two. And at that point, I'm like, whatever Square wants to do, I will take it. I will digest it. Give it to me. Give me. And this was also my Game Informer era. Cause again, if you were a Nintendo person, you had Nintendo Power. If you weren't, then you had GamePro. So that was my first, like, I saved up money. I paid for a subscription for the year, and Chrono Trigger was just like all over this thing. I'm like, oh man, by that point, my brother and I had saved up. We bought a Super Nintendo towards the end of its life cycle. We bought a couple games for it. A lot of used games. This was like pre GameStop, whatever the various stores were. But there were a lot of local game stores.
You
What's
had
that?
you have Funko Land by you? I had Funko
There,
Land
there
for
was
a
there
little
was a
while.
Funko Land. Was it EB or something? It was like Bradley or Electronic. But I don't remember.
It was KB. There was KB Toys.
well, KB
Or
Toys, but there was
KB
another. There was electronics. I want to say it was like E Bradley or something like that. But anyway, there were also some local ones that we had just in like like the main part of our part of Philadelphia. We picked up like that's where we got Super Mario Kart and stuff like that. But so by that point, I had Game Pro. I'm like, oh, this Chrono Trigger thing, like this is I got my Secret of Man energy. I've got my Final Fantasy 3, not knowing it was Final Fantasy 6 then energy. Let's go. Let's check this out. My birthday comes around. I take my birthday money, go up to Funko Land before it became GameStop out by us. And hey, Chrono Trigger, you got it? No. Okay, it's supposed to be out like 3 days ago. All right, fine, whatever. Come back. We'll probably have it tomorrow. It's supposed to be coming out. All right, fine. Come back tomorrow. Chrono Trigger, let's go. And $80. I'm like, what? What do you mean $80? Fine, whatever. This was it was a different time, people. I can't remember whoever's episode they talked about it. Like Target had an ad for it. Apparently, we didn't even have Targets then, but like they had the demo for it, but didn't even sell the game. Like you couldn't find this game. It was a supply and demand issue. Like you had to get these JRPGs for premium. So that's when I cracked it. Yeah.
So before we get into kind of the game, because again, I looked at the developer questions, had to look this stuff up for you.
You're going next level, Ray. Look at this.
Hey, I pay attention to who the guest is going to be. So this is more impressive in hindsight because at the time these are three nobodies who are going to become like big.
One of them's your boy too.
That's what I was saying. Yeah. So you have Hironobu Sakaguchi, who is the creator of Square's Final Fantasy series. Before we go Square Enix, you have Yuji Horii, the creation of Dragon Quest series, and then my guy Akira Toriyama, the designer of Dragon Ball. We always talk about in Sakurai we trust with Smash Brothers, but the Dragon Ball community still to today, it's in Toriyama we trust with whatever he does.
Yeah, for the original Dragon Ball Z, none of this other stuff that came after, none of the recuts, none of the remixes, none of the.
It's all him. Anything, even now, he's the one doing the new stuff, and you need him. You need him.
Oh, so we're back with the new stuff. Okay.
You can tell when he's not involved. It's just very obvious he's the brains behind it all. I mean, you have that much power in one game, and it kind of shows, right? Because this game has a multitude of endings. That's the light way to put it.
Yeah, 20 at the time, unheard of, basically. Yeah,
right. Like ridiculous amount of endings. So many, and a bunch of them kind of hidden behind having to play the game again. Kind of all this new game,
including like there's one you could go right in and like fight the final boss the second you start the game, basically. Like
right, New Game Plus before this even idea. Okay, New Game Plus comes.
I had no idea what New Game Plus was the first time I beat it. I'm like, wait, what's New Game Plus? Oh, hello. All right, I'm in.
So let's go. When you beat the game, let's kind of go there because that's kind of like the big thing. They throw the time travel as kind of a caveat to beating the game and beating it again. That's kind of their thing. Like, oh, we'll just time travel, we'll do it again, and we'll time travel different times. What's your original win when you beat this game?
My original win was basically going through the entire story. I went through the entire story, but also probably about halfway through the game, the main character dies. The main character is killed by the final boss. And you have the ability to resuscitate him only if you have beaten the stupid carnival game that you can play at any point before that. But the carnival game that is at the beginning of the game, you can win a life-size doll of yourself, and that can be used to resuscitate you. I did not win the doll. I could not get that stupid game down. So the first time I finished the game, they're just lamenting his death the entire time. So I'm like, then the New Game Plus comes, and I'm like, oh, I get to do this again. Let's go. So I wanted to go back into it, and I beat it. I beat it early on because again, like once you're there, the second you start the game,
telepod is there.
The telepod is there, and there's a glisten on it that's not there with the new. until the new game plus, and you can immediately go and fight the final. You can either get the princess and have her join you to fight the final boss, or you could fight the final boss solo. I think it was like the third or fourth time where I'm like, I finally fought him. The third time I did it, I beat it with her and him. And then I went back and did it again. I did it with just him, which is hard. It is hard to not get killed by yourself going through the, multiple forms of Lavos in this game. So no, it was a blast, but it was like you said, there's all this interconnected time stuff. There are things that broke me for gaming. Again, the Aerith getting killed in Final Fantasy VII, like, oh, Chrono got killed too. I could bring him back. There's got to be a way to bring her back. No, there's not a way to bring her back. She's just dead. So it broke me even for Final Fantasy VII. I'm like, there's got to be a way to bring her back. Nope, not so much.
So you do the solo Chrono win. Does that mean you got to see the ending with all the developers where they chat with you?
I've seen everything there is to see.
Okay.
Like I did not beat like all 20 of them, but I beat it like halfway through the game, and then I beat it like 10 minutes into the game, and then like the first chance I had solo. So I have beaten the solo for sure.
Does this mean you've beaten the version? Because again, I'm reading all this because I've not played it. Do you beat the Ocean Palace ending, where Lavos is like double speed? It's the one where Chrono can die. Like if Chronos dies in the ending, it's supposed to, because you actually see the world get destroyed, but you can beat it like that if you're just, amazing.
I know off the top of my head, I beat it at the point where Chrono's supposed to die. That was the second time I beat it. I also beat it. So the villain you think is the villain for like the first third or quarter of the game or whatever it is before you find out about Lavos. Is it Magnus? I think his name. I'm trying to remember now. His name, the blue hair guy. I fought it that prevented him from becoming like when he gets displaced in time. I know I beat it at that point also. I want to say I beat it 5 or 6 times, but I know that was another one where, so I beat it. The Chrono was supposed to die. I beat it when Magnus would have gotten displaced in time. And I can't remember like what their actual names are versus what I named them either is my other problem. Because he also had his actual name and then his like villain name. But anyway, and also these characters, like back then you didn't leave their names where they were. You changed their names to your friends, or you changed your names to your pets and things like that. So I can't remember what half of these names are, because like, no, I didn't leave them as is it Micah or Luca? I don't remember, because one of them I changed the name to mix it up. You just always change names. But anyway, I just fails to say, like, I know those are the endings that I had. I had the final ending where like just the game would end. There's no further point to go than this. I had the before Chrono would have died, before time would have gotten jacked up for him, the 2 people, and then the solo. I know for sure I've done those.
So it's kind of a hard question to answer, but when you played the game, right? When you played it and you played it a bunch and you finished it and you were kind of done with it, and you decided, yeah, I've done everything I'm going to do. Did you have any sense of, wow, this is like the greatest game I've ever played?
Just the fact that I kept going back into it. Like there's the Mario 3 like greatest game I ever played, of just like they've perfected this. They've I mean, like they can't do any better than this. And then Super Mario World comes along and like, okay, they did it again. Like, no, but did I think at the time, like, okay, 3 decades from now, I'll be talking to somebody on my computer about about this game? No, I can't say that was the case. I just like it hit everything right for me. The strings and the different things you could do. Cause even as I think about I should have probably looked his name up, but again, I put no prep into this. I sent you guys a list and said, I'm out, I'm done, I'm not doing anything else. But Magnus or whatever that guy's name is. So I remember even in that, my first playthrough, you have the option of like, when you fight him as he's summoning Lavos and you think that's like the end of the world, you can kill him and let the frog turn human again when the game's over, or you can have him join your party. And I remember I killed him the first time and ended him. And then like, you also get his story of like, oh, he didn't become a villain. He got just displaced in time. And he was bringing Lavos back to try to like undo everything and kill Lavos or, whatever the various pieces are. So anyway, I just say all this to say, no, I did not at the time picture sitting in my middle age discussing this game further.
How does this one compare? Or do you find comparisons to playing Sea of Stars? Because that's the new version kind of game. I know people kind of compared it more to Final Fantasy, but did you play it with any feeling of Chrono Trigger behind it?
Yeah, because it is that 90s Square vibe that before Square Enix, and like things got kind of weird for Square at that point.
Just Square.
When it was just Squaresoft. And no, because like they did everything in that Final Fantasy 3/6 / Chrono Trigger mold. Like it looks like that. It plays better, like with quality of life improvements. So no, like that's where Sea of Stars hit for me. Of just like, nope, they caught that RPG vibe of that time, and it worked perfectly. But yes, I thought absolutely of Final Fantasy 3 and of Chrono Trigger.
Could you see a game today? Could you see a new game made today with that many options and details? Because we get a lot of games with content and side quests, right? And do all this other stuff instead of the main story, as opposed to Chrono Trigger was like play the main story, and because everything you also do on the side is actually just part of the main story, you're just going to decide which main story you're doing. Could you imagine a game, like a new game today, that's going to have like that many options that matter in that way?
So like, I hate to use the term master is probably overused, especially when you have like, the older Japanese developers, and we talk about like Sakurai as a master, and we talk about, Miyamoto as a master, and like there's this like old traditionalist version, but like you were talking about three masters who were like, no, we're gonna do this thing, and they like Chrono Trigger was an accident. Effective, like that was not they did not go in planning to make that game. They kind of were going in to do Final Fantasy or something, and like fell into that. Hang on. So they kind of accidented themselves into that. So I just say all this to say, like, you're also hitting one of my pet peeves, and even so, I'm replaying through The Last of Us 2 of like, oh, that's right, this one has the baseball cards that I have to go looking. I don't have to go looking for the baseball cards. Fortunately, there's not anything to it, but like all these games now, like they keep putting in just these silly little collectathons. Whereas if they took the effort to do that and like just wrote out on the graph paper, again, even as I'm talking through Chrono Trigger, of like all the different points where you can do this or that, there's other stuff that can happen throughout there. There's like going and saving Micah or Luca or whatever her name was. You could save her mom from being injured, and that changes the game. Where like these things that happen that are not just, nothing in that game feels like it's filler. And to Old Man Yell at Cloud about this, stop making me go find 37 lightsaber hilts and 27 ponchos and give me something substantive in here. Take the time you did to program in, a fifth shade of lightsaber, and go ahead and do this. So like they took the time for it. I think, you've talked about it before too, where like we're going back to these games of, we're getting that 2D, 3D mix. We're getting that art style back in. So hopefully that'll take some of the strain off of this like unmaintainable AAA budget. I need something to look entirely human, realistic, uncanny valley thing. And, focus on the narrative, focus on the story. At the same time, like hopefully you can make it for less. And I know there's going to be people out there saying this looks stupid. I want my game to look like I'm playing whatever, but enjoy the story. Go for it.
All right, so move on to the next one here. We got Mass Effect 2. So Dan, I know your work. We don't have to announce your work, but I know that the work you do involves, 1,000 decisions every single day. Do you ever stop and think about the fact that the video games that you choose to enjoy happen to do the same thing? You seem to love games where you have a lot of choices to make all the time.
I think it's only the case because it keeps it from being repetitive. Again, not that there's not, like, I love Mario 3. I loved Mario Wonder. I love Super Mario World. I love the Zelda games, like the older Zelda games where like, no, you're just going from progression to progression. Those are fun. Those are perfect. But there's something about these worlds where I appreciate these places that are created that have depth to them that can be lived in. And I think you see that again with Mass Effect 2, which I talked about in Nikki's episode 2 episodes ago from this, I guess, where like I didn't play Mass Effect 1. I wasn't buying an Xbox to play that. I knew I wanted to try this BioWare game because, again, to your point, like, their BioWare made some good games. I wanted to try it. This was their foray into the PlayStation. I heard great things. Let's go do it. And they gave me a motion comic for it, or whatever it was you want to call it, that I had to make the choices for. But I to answer your question though, like, no, they're more fun worlds to live in when they have that depth to them.
So we'll start with choice one: soldier, infiltrator, engineer, or sentinel. What's the gameplay choice, or what's the gameplay style? I guess
soldier or sentinel. That's all. That's all it would be for me. Like I'm give me a sniper rifle, give me an assault rifle, give me I'll go right in there for it. I'm not I'm not the engineer. That's where you get like your magic and stuff like that, or your biotics and all that stuff. That was never big for me with that game. Just let me pick somebody off in the head while they're poking their head out, and I'll take care of this.
Next set of decisions: Paragon decisions or Renegade. Did you kind of bounce back and forth? Did you feel a moral obligation to make one decision over another? What was the way to play the game for you?
I enjoy Grand Theft Auto as much as the next guy. Again, that's just like a different switch to your, to your point, right? Like it's a different world, it's a different mindset. But even with that too, like I'm kind of curious to see what I do when Grand Theft Auto 6 comes out. If I have the psychological fortitude to play that anymore. But like, I can't play with that kind of malice and ill will to do the Renegade stuff. So no, it was always Paragon for me. I wouldn't go back and be like, oh my God, I made a Renegade decision. I need to go undo this and go play something else. But just like, I'm not going to, even in a game, I'm not going to, shoot somebody in the head just to drive a point to the rest of the people and scare them. I'm going to stick with it. And even like my first playthrough of the game, I lost one of the party members because I wouldn't make a Renegade decision with them. So yeah. I'm out of here. I'm done with you. Whatever. I don't care. Get out of here then.
This is more of a follow-up here. Any specific choice that you remember that you found kind of challenging or like emotionally impactful, that you were like you made a decision and you were upset, like you didn't like your decision, you just had to make a hard choice?
No, I don't think so, because that game did not involve the same way 1 and 3 had. Like, you're gonna kill characters if you make this decision. So I never felt like that the decisions in that game were not as like binding. I'm very curious if I would have played 1 and like, you're picking one of these two people who have been in your crew for this game dies and one doesn't, and you got to pick one of them. That would have probably stuck with me a little bit more, rather than saying like, motion comic here, you got to pick her or him, take your pick. And I'm like, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Okay, he dies. See ya. So no, not really, because it's fun to make the decisions. You could see the repercussions for it. You could see how it makes the impact throughout the game, but it wasn't like there's anything that really stuck with me in the same way.
Did you play the Legendary Edition when that came out, or did you just play kind of the original one and that's kind of been the end of it for you?
The original one, I want to go back, but again, like, just there's too many other things in the backlog, or there's too many new games. I will end up going back to it someday, only because it's perfect. And I just remember the first time I turned it on, because again, this was like, even the PlayStation 3, Fallout 3 was like my main game on the PlayStation 3 for a long time. So when I booted this thing up and like, you know what Bethesda games look like. They always look like they're a generation back, because they're building for size. They're building for quantity, not quality. And I open this thing up and it's like perfectly rendered. Martin Sheen's over here playing this weird, X-Files cigarette smoking man type of guy just in the corner. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, wait, what is Martin Sheen doing voicing a video game character that, like, all right, I guess there's a gravitas we're giving to this, dragging Martin Sheen out into this game. Anyway, I answer your question somewhere in there, but I don't know.
All right, so we move on to your final honorable mention, one admittedly in my extensive backlog, Marvel's Spider-Man. So how did your favorite PS4 game only just make the cut?
Well, it's not Chrono Trigger and it's not Mass Effect 2. Sorry, Spidey. That's all. That's all. That's how you end up here. You end up in third, but you're not Link to the Past. So be happy.
So recently, you abused your min powers, your words, not mine, and made a quest out of adding Guardians of the Galaxy to your Epic library. You know, I know you're a big fan of that. You're a big fan of the Arkham trilogy. But what is it about Spider-Man, though, that makes it better than all the other superhero games? Is it because Spider-Man's your favorite superhero, or is it something about the gameplay or story that stood out to you?
So
It's because the Arkham series walked so that the Spider-Man could run.
no,
Also, Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation 2 crawled so that Arkham series could walk. Oh, yeah.
Arkham ran so Spider-Man could fly into space. Arkham did not just walk. So here's the explanation I'll give to that. I remember playing Arkham Asylum, and the first thing about Arkham Asylum is, oh my God, they dragged Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill into this game. And as a kid who grew up with like Batman the Animated Series was on when you got home, it was on Fox, and just like also for anybody who doesn't know, that show holds up still. For anybody who, it's still so like good. I picked it up on digital and like the kids watched it and like that show still holds up to this day. So hearing like what would it have been? Like a decade basically since, or for me it had been a decade, I guess, but I guess Kevin Conroy was still doing stuff in animated shows, but for me, the fact that they did that, I'm like, oh, there's something else going on here. But I know the exact moment things crystallized for me in that game is when, you're hanging around gargoyles, you're stringing up bad guys. I remember I swung over to another gargoyle. There's a bad guy hanging upside down. One of the other henchmen comes over like, oh, look, Tommy's hanging up here. And I accidentally hit the Batarang button. And the Batarang flies over and cuts down the guy who's hanging there, dropping onto the other henchmen who are down there, and they all start freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, I'm Batman. Like you get this like, oh no, they didn't just say you're going to do stuff. Like they did things that's like, no, you're going to cause fear with these people, and like you are Batman. So I say all this to say, like they did the same thing for Spider-Man. There was a whole thing where basically like the was it THQ who had the rights for Spider-Man? It was THQ or somebody had the rights for Spider-Man before, and after Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out, like they kind of shoved that game out there. They had like the Web of Shadows or whatever. They had a couple of like, decent efforts out there, but never quite got it. They never quite got it. And then Insomniac comes in and like, hey, we're signing the rights over to Insomniac. Here you go. It's already, the movies are already in the Sony house. Let's give the game over to the Sony house also. So anyway, I had the same thing happen with this one where, especially like the first stealth level. I mean, like just playing through the first like opening fight. You open the fight, you open the game up. You're in Peter Parker's apartment, surrounded by like overdue bills and everything else. Then like chaos is breaking out outside. You're getting a call. They're going to take down Kingpin. Again, just a perfectly executed tutorial level of. Yeah, Ray shaking his head. He knows he's been doing it on PC now. Like it's a perfectly executed tutorial level. Like you fight a couple henchmen who've got no guns, but by the time you're done this, they've got machine guns. You're not, you're getting enemies right off the bat, and even Kingpin is the first boss you face off against. Like just becomes a normal villain through the rest of the game of these like bruiser henchmen. So, but I remember same thing though. Like the first stealth level I play, where like. You just kind of hang off the ceiling, you grab somebody and web them to the ceiling and they can't do anything. And you're just dropping them one by one. Like, oh no, you're like, I'm Spider-Man. You get this, like, you just feel like, oh, I'm Spider-Man. And like the web mechanics they had for while you're swinging through the city, my goodness, they perfected it. Like I remember the Spider-Man game came out after the first Tobey Maguire game. And like, okay, that was a really well executed Spider-Man game. It had shadows and all sorts of stuff to work with. And the Spider-Man 2 Tobey Maguire game was really good too. But man, they like my daughter would just love to play that game and just swing around the city. She wouldn't do anything else. She'd be like 4 years old, 5 years old or whatever. And she's like, I just want to swing around the city. Have at it, honey. Go for it. And she would just swing around the city for like 20 minutes and just enjoy doing that. And you're like, but anyway, just sales to say, like, Arkham, you're Batman. Spider-Man, you're Spider-Man. And it's really cool in that regard. Like the Guardians of the Galaxy one, that's a different thing altogether. Like that was, again, as I said before too, like Marvel's Avengers screwed up. And then they had Guardians come out after that, and everybody's like, oh, Avengers stunk. We're not going to bother with Guardians. Like, no, Guardians is a different game. It is a narrative story. Choices are peppered throughout it, Ray. Don't worry. They're in there. But like they put a lot of care into the story, into the characters. The voice acting was great in it. And again, that's where I got to shout out the Spider-Man game too. Like much like there was breaking out Kevin Conroy and Mark Hamill, the Yuri Lowenthal. It's kind of fun for him. He's doing the reverse Kevin Conroy that he has been doing. He did the Marvel's Midnight Suns Spider-Man, even though that's not Insomniacs. They had him come in and do it for I think that character's only on the PlayStation version, but they had him come do it. There's something else he did too. And even with Spider-Verse 2, like he's got a cameo in Across the Spider-Verse, or whatever it was, the second Spider-Verse movie. He's in there. Insomniac Spider-Man's a cameo. He went to the red carpet premiere for the movie. Like he's kind of backdoored himself into being like, he is a definitive Spider-Man. His efforts in this are fantastic. The actors, the Doc Ock in Spider-Man, when you're hearing kind of everything degrading for him, is fantastic. Like every one of these voice actors they use in those games is giving their all for it.
So I actually watched through the gameplay this past week in preparation for this. Spoiled the game for myself, but
Okay.
Worth it. But I was surprised to discover that not only did you play a little bit as Mary Jane, but also as Miles Morales. It's almost like they were planning ahead for the Miles Morales spinoff. What were your thoughts on playing as those characters?
They improved greatly for Spider-Man 2, first of all. The playing back through those again, I played through them again a little while ago, just while trying to get some of the target shots. I just did the New Game Plus for it. And it's not as painful as I remember. There's one of the Mary Jane levels that I'm like, this is pain and suffering to go through here. But it was cool because it was not my era of comics for Miles Morales or anything, but like I'm like, okay, good. They're setting this up. They're not just going to shove and say, look, you got a new Spider-Man in here. Like I was curious what they were going to do. But they kind of earned giving the character importance, and they kind of earned putting him in there. So it's kind of fun in that regard. The Mary Jane level is good. Mix it up. Let's do some stealth piece to it. Again, they greatly improved her levels for 2. And I know there's people who have other issues with that, and I'll happily have a discussion with you people if I need to, but but that's a story for another day.
So there were several just epic boss fights against some of Spidey's most iconic villains. Which stood out to you the most?
The Doc Ock fight at the end. No, I mean, they all did. They were all kind of fun. The Shocker fight in the bank was really cool because you're using the environment to take him down. I liked how they had the Sinister Six fights where you're kind of using them against each other for it. But Vulture and Elektra, like, okay, that's fine. And same thing, like Scorpion. The only thing, Scorpion, they kind of did the same thing they did with Scarecrow and Batman. So I'm like, okay, sure, fine. And when you do the fight with Rhino and Scorpion, like, okay, yeah, we kind of get it. The Mr. Negative, a villain I had no familiarity with, they did a really good job with how that fight played out, and those fights kind of in the mind played out. But the Doc Ock, only because you have like the boss fight itself, it's got its challenges, and you got to like reload your gear, and but a very achievable fight. But it's kind of the stuff that's happening during the fight. It's the stuff that's being said. It's knowing where Aunt May's at, and you hear the desperation. Again, the acting's so good because you hear the desperation in both Spider-Man's and Doc Ock's voices about what's happening to both of them, and you hear the desperation for both of them. And anyway, I just have to say, like, the Doc Ock fight sticks out the most for me for that reason.
Yeah, watching that, it really felt like they captured what was so well done with Doc Ock in Spider-Man 2,
Yeah.
the movie.
Well, I also love, like, I don't know how much of it you all watched at the like even at the beginning of the game. They make it seem like, oh, he's going to become Doc Ock at the beginning of the game. Like, it starts off with like him kind of almost getting fried in the arms and everything, and Peter comes in and shuts it down. Like, no. And like, it was nice. It was I enjoyed the fake out of it. But to your point, like that's all of something about, all of Spider-Man's villains, not as Stan Lee imagined them, but as like all of the people who have come along after Stan Lee said, we're going to make a guy who has octopus arms and we're going to call him Doc Ock. And like, that was a lot of Stan Lee's contributions, with all due respect, but like it's these other people who have come along in the, 50, 60 years since then, and like given gravitas, given weight to characters, given them motivations that like really put it out there. And whoever made the decisions they did to give Doc Ock the story they did, like they understood that the best Spider-Man villains are built that way, with something sympathetic about them, something where you're like, oh, okay, I kind of get what's going on here. And you kind of give Peter a reason not to just like, okay, I'm just going to go punch the snot out of this guy, All
right. So getting into spoiler territory here, which has basically been the theme of the night.
Cover your ears, Ray.
What were your thoughts on that emotional ending?
So this one nearly made, this was like 3A with my original piece of this. My wife did not watch this game. My kids ended up watching this game while I was playing it through the course of it. Like my son be like, hey, can you, he did the thing his mom did. And like, hey, can you wait for me for this game? So I had to create a second save file at that point so I could keep playing the game while also having the game that he would be watching through the course of it. But anyway, I only bring this up in tying with my wife's version of this because, my wife never handles old people well in any kind of medium or media, or if you're talking about an old person, especially like a sickly old person, she just doesn't handle that well. And she comes in and like the kids are in here, and again, Ray, you can earmuff this. I don't remember if we talked about this before or not, but like it is what it is. It's been 6 years. It's been almost 6 years now. So my wife comes in and again, like just so well acted by, I get nothing wrong with like Aunt May's performance in this, but like Yuri Lowenthal's just like breaking down as you're coming in. You've got the cure. My wife's there and she's watching. She kind of like stops and sees what's going on here. Is like this really dramatic acting's happening in this game, and and he's you hear him like he's really thinking about like, I'm just going to give the cure to her and we'll figure out the rest later. And, she stops him and my wife's like, oh my God, they're going to kill Aunt May. I'm like, there was probably a 50-50 shot for me of like, she's not going to make it out of this game, which was also not to say like, killing her for the sake of killing her is cool. But I think the reasons they did it, the way they did it, the, hey, listen, it sucks to be Spider-Man, but in this way, but you're saving everybody else. And, the greater responsibility piece of things without having to shove like a saying out there or like something they beat to death in movies, or again, pulling Martin Sheen into it in a movie and trying to make him not say the thing. But anyway, but like doing that, it was just such a great emotional performance. My wife is bawling. She's like, oh my, she is bawling watching this thing as it's happening there too. I'm like, oh man, this is, because again, it's really well, like if you took that same scene, you put it in a movie, like people like this would be a great performance. Again, you take anyway, yeah, if you were to do the same thing in a movie, people would be paying attention, like how well acted it was.
It's almost too like Peter's decision here, the choice he made is like the antithesis to the decision Joel made in The Last of Us.
Yeah, it is, except that cure wouldn't have worked. This cure did. Sorry, again, that's not how fungal infections work. That wouldn't have done anything.
Oh,
we
needed
actually
at some point.
Not a doctor, not a lawyer. I know.
I was just waiting for the comic book guy to make appearance here. Well, actually,
yeah, no, I'll happily, yeah.
So, which is your favorite Spider-Man? Is it Yuri, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, Tom Holland, or someone else?
Yuri. No, I want to make sure we're clear. There's no editing out of dead air here. There's no There's
that was an immediate answer.
no hesitation, immediate answer. If you would like, I could give you my breakdown of like Tobey Maguire handled the Peter Parker stuff well. Andrew Garfield handled the Spider-Man stuff well. Andrew Garfield got done dirty by some rough scripting. Tom Holland was a pretty good, like, just kid, got the snarky, got that piece right. Andrew Garfield kind of got redeemed in the last one there, but now the Yuri Lowenthal, like, for anybody who's not paying attention, like, I feel bad for anybody who's like, oh, it's a video game and doesn't, like, if you were to just play, you watch this as basically a movie for all intents and purposes. And for anybody who would watch this performance, and again, like, he's implanting himself as like, no, he's like a middle-aged dude. He's playing a 26-ish-year-old Spider-Man. He's not playing, kid Spider-Man or anything. But for anybody who's paying attention, like, he's giving great performances doing this. And again, he still does it through too. And even like the little bit of Miles Morales he's in. But that's not like the same weight and heft of that performance, which also the guy who plays Miles Morales is also like old. I remember what made me look it up on IMDb, want to be like, oh my God, that is not what I expected I did not expect this old guy doing Miles Morales' voice. But again, by the time you get to Miles' game and to Spider-Man 2, like he's giving killer performances too.
All right. So last question. We've talked a lot about Marvel, we've talked a lot about DC, but which is your best? What's your favorite? Marvel, DC?
Marvel. Anger
the fanboys.
No, I mean, listen, Marvel's usually just better execute. Like it's fine if we're going to do this, fine. So it goes back to DC started as like a story of like unlimited power of gods and kind of these morality tales, just like do the right thing, and like they didn't have burdens. It was the 30s, 40s. They didn't have the same thing. Stanley came along and said like, hey, let's give them some characterizations people can relate to, and their relatability has been far more effective. That's why Batman's usually the most popular and best executed of the DC, because like, okay, at least that guy's human. But Marvel's ability to create relatable characters has always been at their advantage. Yeah, I'm done. Sorry,
this isn't the night to argue.
Yeah, I don't do a lot of arguments.
I'll save it for another time.
I'm decisive.
Right. Let's look to the future. A game you're looking forward to, Dan. Mario versus Donkey Kong. Have you played the demo? It just came out.
No, the demo did just come out. I did not play it yet. This is also kind of like my default answer. The Princess Peach Showtime also has kind of my attention too, but like we're coming off a year I have not even fully digested, finished, or recovered yet. I still have to do Baldur's Gate 3. Is there anything else we're really looking forward to this year?
Hollow Knight Silksong, right? That's coming out this year. And Metroid Prime 4, right?
Ray said, listen, one of those two things was your delivery on Hollow Knight was kind of funny. Your Metroid Prime 4 joke was just mean.
I'll say Hades 2 as well. The more and more that gets delayed, the more I'm getting not excited for it, and it's
no,
upsetting me.
You should be. There's no Supergiant has. You should have faith. Both Hollow Knight and Hades, like they're not doing it because something's wrong. Like Metro Prime 4 got scrapped. Like they went to rebuild that from the ground up. Hollow Knight's not doing. They're not going to release Hollow Knight until it's right. They're not going to release Hades 2 until it's right, and not because they have to throw it in the dumpster, but just because that. So I sell that to say no. I have not played the demo. I'll get to it. I am kind of excited because like. I'm almost at this point where like outside of the Strikers jokes, because again, that's Camelot involved. That's not directly Nintendo. So I'm going to take it out of here. Like Nintendo's telling me what I want. They're not waiting here. They're not saying here like, hey, we think you might like this. No, you want this Mario versus Donkey Kong. I'm like, okay, I want Mario versus Donkey Kong. If that's what you're going to tell me I want, I guess I want it, guys. Let me do this. And like, I don't know. It looks interesting.
I watched the demo and immediately I was like, I want to play this handheld.
Oh,
that's the feeling I got. I want it. Like, it has a 2-player mode. It's gonna be a nice little thing, little puzzle game. It felt kind of like Donkey Kong the original. There was something to it. Donkey Kong's hiding away every time, and Mario's doing his little puzzle to get to Donkey Kong. but it felt like I'm gonna sit on my couch and play this handheld. That was the feeling I got.
I don't know when the last time I played my Switch not handheld was. Like seriously, I think all I play is handheld now, and even like my daughter, she got some, not Power Acre, she got some fancy light up controller for her Switch, but even she just still plays it like she plays the Switch just on a table or on something and use the controller just because she wants to use the controller she bought. So even she's like, that's just playing handheld. That's just what it's gonna be.
Yep. Especially the between the OLED and the potential Switch 2, that OLED upgrade, that the screen makes such a difference.
You wouldn't think it does, but it does.
It really did. It's just that it's a little bigger, a little brighter, and I was like, oh yeah, I can look at this.
It's crisp.
Yeah.
All right, so we move on to a question from Dan C3 History. He doesn't know what's coming, but how do you pronounce it? SNES or the wrong way?
See, this was just this is just mean spirited.
I was just doing it as a joke.
There's 4 questions written. There's 4 questions written down, and that's not one of them.
I love it. No, wait, that makes it so much better. I know you weren't really being mean spirited. I'm just kidding. But the fact that you didn't write it down just for that makes that joke 100 times better. Knowing that's the case, I give it a standing round of applause.
Okay, I'll do a real one here. All right, so we move on to a question from Dan C3 History. Now, he doesn't know ahead of time what it is. We pick it out. And I had a few written down, but I think we're going to go with this one. Dan, what's your favorite Star Wars game, and why is it not KOTOR?
Because when I'm coming for a Star Wars game, so a couple things. So I'll answer your second part first. Why is it not Knights of the Old Republic? I like Knights of the Old Republic. I played that on my brother, my senior year of college, was my brother's freshman year of college. I insisted that he come move into the apartment my buddy and I had, because I didn't want him paying dorm fees. Like, just come move into the apartment. We got you covered. Come on, we'll take care of you. He had the Xbox, I had the PlayStation 2. So I did play the Xbox stuff on there, and that's where like the morality stuff really, that was like Xbox's lane for, besides Halo, was like, oh, we got the morality
Fable
games here. What's that? The Fable. Yeah, Fable. I love playing Fable on there. Knights of the Republic was, I liked it. It was good. It was well executed. It just it's like Reese's peanut butter cups. Like, you got chocolate in my peanut butter, you got peanut butter in my chocolate. You got your role playing game, my Star Wars. You got your Star Wars in my role playing game. Like, it was always well executed. I liked it. It was a great story. It's just not, peak of it. The one that's sticking out for me right now, though, there's 2 things I think about. One, my first response is Shadows of the Empire. We just put out the N64 lists, and Shadows of the Empire sticks out for me because that was like this first instance of you're playing the Hoth level and you're escaping Hoth at the same time Empire Strikes Back is happening. I hadn't read like the Shadow of the Empire books or anything. I'm not an expanded universe guy or anything like that. But just like getting into that, like, oh, you're in this world, you're there. Yeah, that game just stuck out to me. It was really well executed. It was good battles. Looking back on it, it's the 3D graphics don't hold up the same way as they do in my head as they always do. But I do love that N64 game, Ray. Just so we're clear. And that was like number 6 on my list too for the N64, Ray. So again, love the N64, Ray. Back off. But the other thing I got to call out these new ones. I've got to finish. What's it called?
Jedi Survivor?
No, I got to finish the first one still.
Fallen Order.
I got to finish Fallen Order first. But like, even just the opening of Fallen Order sticks in my head. It got a little too just kind of like stuff's happening for me. And again, like the collectathon, there's a lot of like slow parts to it, but the opening of that game is just something that's going to stick. Like, the opening of that game is probably my favorite Star Wars game, where you're in this shipyard, you're seeing all this stuff happening. The Star Destroyers are out there like getting cut up, and All this stuff's happening for this like in between, the post prequels, pre New Hope activities happening there. The music's there. You're in this world. It's beautifully rendered. So aside from Shadows of the Empire, and which had really cool battles too, like Shadows of the Empire, they had the cool space battles. They had the cool, levels you just played through. But the opening of Fallen Order is my other favorite Star Wars game.
I admit, Fallen Order is also my extensive backlog, and you talking about it just makes me want to play it even more.
Yeah, I gotta power through at some point, because the parts are like the train stuff. Like, yeah, so you go from like this opening, and you get a bunch of the Inquisitors that are in there, and then you go to this train battle, which is like it's tutorial again, perfectly executed tutorial level, and it's beautifully rendered and so cool. And then like it just kind of slows down from there, and I wish it was more of just the action.
So Dan, what's your favorite feature on Channel 3?
You know what? This is the one it didn't hit me until today. Again, the quest thing, I'm like, whatever, I bring it on. I got whatever you're going to bring at me here. This is the one today where I'm like, oh God, I forgot to answer this one. But I know what my answer is going to be. I thought about talking about like the culture pieces and again, like I've talked about that the toxicity is not gonna be kept out forever. But the thing I'll talk about is I'm gonna counter Joel from what he did to us, and I'm gonna say Joel throughout all this, because how many times have we what are you laughing at? Right? Ray's over here doubling. He's falling back.
Oh, because I typed the answers at each time, so I just typed Joel.
So you're talking about somebody who has spent, at this point, the last 2 years of his life building up this thing just for, again, like trying to build something bigger here. But just truly, I can tell you just from conversations I had with him, even back in the dad gaming days, something he believed in back then. And I think he always kind of knew he wanted to get to the point of just creating this ecosystem and culture and opening this entire thing up. And Ray, you and I get to see more of what happens behind the scenes than anybody else does. Like there's sub chats and sub chats of inside of sub chats about, stuff that happens with this site, but it's purely like Ray and I, we help and we support, and we're trying to like, we're trying to maintain the car, but like he's suddenly like, why should we have a car when I could put a helicopter blade on top of this thing and we can fly it? And we're like, never thought about a helicopter blade. Great idea. And sure enough, by dinner time, the helicopter blade's there and it is already taken off. So like there's this stuff where he gets these ideas about a feature or an activity or something along those lines. And again, as he said, he's not a web designer. He's not by trade he has not created websites by trade. He's got, some experience and training and whatnot with it, but like, this isn't what he does. But here it is. It's been effectively, almost 2 years of this thing now, built by scratch for him, built as a passion, more than a passion project for him. But again, everybody's got to understand, like, this is all he's been doing for this time. This is not, Ray and I have our day jobs, night jobs. We've got our own activities over here. And this is like, this is hustle number 3 for all intents and purposes of trying to help maintain this stuff. But for anybody who doesn't get exactly how much he's doing behind the scenes, like we try and lay down some grenades and try and take cover for some things for him. Like we could take care of this, or he doesn't have to worry about that. The stuff he's doing behind the scenes and the speed with which he's doing it, the amount of time he'll take for most of the things where he goes from idea to execution is astounding. And I do sincerely hope everybody appreciates, like he's joked about, his family's support through all of this. And, basically the fact that they've kind of given him the leeway to be able to take the time. And again, I can't imagine what the financial impact is for him, but like he's putting this together from scratch with, there's no big brother behind this thing. There's no, you go out there and you look in. And Ray, how many various gaming sites and activities? You and I have participated in a gaming, we participated in another gaming service at one point, kind of like a a side activity we were doing, various entities swore that, like, how many of these things have died and gone in the last 2 years? You know, they get these massive influxes of cash with conditions and caveats to them, and they're dead and gone now. And this thing's been held together by pure muscle, driven by him, and the creativity driven by him. And the community helps, and people will put ideas out there, but 90% of the time those ideas are already on Joel's corkboard, and he'll probably just prioritize what he was already framing out and say, like, okay, yeah, here it is. Or how many times have we gone through, I don't have a whole lot for this season coming up here. And, this season, I think we had a lot for day one of the season, but I feel like the last 3 seasons before that, he's like, I don't have a whole lot. We got like 3 or 4 features for day one. And the next thing you know, like a mobile, there's a mobile app, there's an app store drop, there's a, whatever else monstrous changes happen. And again, not that
always astounded what a new season brings.
Yeah. Yeah. Not that he's sucking up to, but he does need to be appreciated for the cultural base he has created and the sheer amount of willpower he has put into this thing.
And it's a point to be made about the whole, because obviously we go out of our way to go look for any sites or any companies coming up that would seem similar to what we're doing. That's like part of what we do. And every time we find one, it's backed by, it's some VC backed thing each time. And then you do a search and it's like, hey, remember, oh, by the way, they had to rename their business because they were sued 3 times under their previous name, and now they're under this name. I mean, it's every single time one pops up, and they're like, "Oh, I just heard about this one." I was like, "Oh, so somebody just pumped a bunch of money into something new again."
Yeah, Ray.
Because every time.
I think Ray picked up on like the first few times early on. We'd be looking at them, and like I would just send a dossier basically of like, oh, I found out everybody who's involved with this, and here's the dumpster fire that is either happening or will happen in short order because of it. I think Ray's cut out the middleman of waiting for me to say, like, here's the dossier of what's occurring here. And like, it's independent, and like that's a financial toll for all of this, but like, you're not dealing with the headache. And watch Silicon Valley as much as you want to see it, like a joking dramatization of it. But like, that's all that comes to mind for me when I see some of this stuff happening, is the ludicrousness of that.
Well, with that, we have made it to the end of another What Are You Three podcast.
Here I am not wanting to do this, and I end up making the longest episode in history. Jesus.
Thanks, Dan, for being here as our guest, and a special thanks as well to Darth Smeagol, who jumped into something that is not his natural forte either, being the co-host, and he went out of his way, put a whole bunch of effort and a whole bunch of preparation into this episode. So appreciate the both of you for all the work you did. You can find the podcast at sc3.gg/podcast, dropping every Wednesday morning at 3:33 a.m. Eastern on all the major platforms, including Spotify, YouTube Music, and Apple Podcasts. I'm Ray. You know what? Dan still puts this all together. And for the executive producer, Joel Willis, have a good day, everybody.
We did it.
We made it.
I need to go to bed.
I hate it.
I'm so sorry that was so long. I yapped way too long. Jesus. I figure I can start with my normal opening, and you guys can cut me off when I say, what are your 3? And you just shut me up and say, no. And you can cut me off. And
I was going to do the whole opening.
I'm going to start it. You can just cut me off and do your opening from there.
I was thinking we got to do something a little different for the opening.
Yep. Well, I got nothing. I'm ready when you guys are. Then I don't have to do a spiel or nothing.
I'm good to go.
You ready, Smeagol?
Yeah, I think so.
All right, we'll give a little break. I have the recording button is hit. I should have not recorded this. That would have been great if this was the one I chose not to record. All right. Welcome, crew, to What Are Your 3, a Channel 3 podcast where we take a member of the Channel 3 community, discuss 3 games of their choosing. Oh, wait, you got to cut me off in the middle of this. Try that again. You just you can shut me up in the middle. All right, ready?
I was going to let you say the whole thing. Okay, go ahead.
No, you can cut me off in the middle of it for all I care. Ready?
Channel 3 is the future.